the gate, the morning, and the words I never forgot. I am going to tell you a story that begins 38 years ago and ends at a shareholder meeting 7 months ago. I am 68 years old and I am telling you this now because my daughter asked. Me too, she said. Mama, people need to hear it. She said it the way she says things she has thought about carefully, which is the way she says most things. Because she has been that way since she was small, deliberate, precise, and absolutely certain when she has made up her mind. She gets that from Emmy. She got most things from me, because there was no one else to get them from. I will start at the gate, because the gate is where all of it began. My name is Constance. In the autumn of my 29th year, I discovered I was pregnant. The father was a man named Richard, whom I had been with for 2 years, who came from a family that had money in the particular way that old money presents itself, quietly, confidently, and with the constant, low-level awareness that most people in the room do not belong there. Richard had never made me feel that way. His family had never quite managed not to. Grandma always said, "A man who loves you in private but cannot defend you in public does not yet love you enough. Watch carefully which one he chooses when the choice arrives." I went to his family home on a Saturday morning. I had called ahead and his mother had said to come by, that Richard was there. I had not told her why I was coming. I had thought I would tell Richard first, privately, and that we would face the conversation with his family together afterward. That is not how it happened. I arrived at the gate. The housekeeper let me in as far as the driveway and went to inform the family. I waited. Richard's mother came to the door. She did not open it fully. She looked at me through the partially open door with an expression that I recognized even then as having been prepared in advance. The way you prepare an expression when you know what the conversation is going to be and have already decided how it will end. She said Richard was not available. I said I had called ahead and she had said he was home. She said circumstances had changed. I told her I needed to speak with him and that it was important. She asked me what it was regarding. I told her I was pregnant with her grandchild. She looked at me for a long moment. Then she said, with a clarity that told me the words had been chosen carefully, "That is not possible." She said her son would never be involved with someone like me. She said I should leave. She said if I returned or contacted the family again there would be consequences. She closed the door. I heard the lock turn. I stood in the driveway for a moment, in the specific suspended stillness of someone who has just been told something that requires a complete reorganization of their understanding of their situation. Then I walked back to the gate and through it, and I did not look back. Someone like me, and what I built from that. Someone like me. I have thought about those 3 words for 38 years. Not obsessively, not with the consuming bitterness that would have been understandable and that I decided very early on I could not afford, but with the particular clarity of someone who has been told exactly what the world thinks of them and has chosen to use the information productively, rather than to be destroyed by it. Someone like me was 29 years old, the daughter of a seamstress and a man who drove delivery trucks, educated on scholarship at a university that Richard's family would have recognized the name of if they had bothered to ask, employed as a junior accountant at a firm that was respectable by any measure they might have applied, and pregnant, alone, on a Saturday morning in a driveway that was not mine. Someone like me decided, on the drive home, that those 3 words were the last time anyone would have the material to say them. Grandma always said, when someone tells you what you are not, they are handing you the blueprint for exactly what to become. Take the blueprint, do the work, show them the finished building. My daughter Nadine was born in the spring. She was healthy and alert, and from the first week of her life had a way of looking at things with complete focused attention that I found both exhausting and magnificent. I went back to work when she was 4 months old, which was as long as I could afford to be away. My mother helped with the childcare. We were not comfortable, but we were not broken, and I understood the difference between those two things and made sure Nadine grew up understanding it, too. I studied for my professional accounting qualifications over 3 years while working full-time and raising Nadine. I passed each examination on the first sitting. I moved to a better firm. I moved to a better firm again. By the time Nadine was 10, I was a senior partner. By the time she was 15, I had enough capital and enough professional relationships to begin investing in early-stage businesses in the sectors I understood best. I was not building an empire. I want to be clear about that because the word empire suggests intention and drama that was not present in the actual experience. I was making careful decisions, one after another, about where to put my time and my money and my professional judgment. Some of those decisions did not work. Some of them worked very well. Over 30 years, the accumulated result of those decisions was a portfolio of equity positions that my financial advisor, in a meeting 3 years ago, described as substantial by any measure. One of those positions was a 60% stake in a technology services company called Meridian Systems. I had invested in its founding round 22 years ago and held through every restructuring since. I did not sit on the board. I did not attend operational meetings. I was, in the precise language of corporate finance, a silent majority shareholder. Nadine's new job and the name on the org chart. Nadine is 38 years old. She is a data systems architect, which she has to explain to most people at dinner parties, and which involves designing the structural logic of large-scale technology platforms in ways that I understand well enough to be proud of and not quite well enough to fully explain. She was recruited last year by Meridian Systems, which offered her a senior role at a level and compensation that reflected, her recruiter said, exactly how much they wanted her specifically. She called me on the evening after her first day. She was pleased with the role, positive about the team, impressed by the technical infrastructure. She mentioned, in passing, that her department head was a middle manager named Richard Harcastle, who had been with the company for 11 years and who had a reputation as someone who protected his territory and did not respond well to people who were more capable than he was. I was in my kitchen when she said the name. I put down my cup. I said, Nadine, what is his full name? Grandma always said, the world is smaller than it appears. This is not always a comfortable fact, but it is almost always a useful one. His full name was Richard James Harcastle. He was 62 years old. He had worked in technology services management for 20 years and had been at Meridian Systems for 11 of them. He had 2 adult children from a marriage that had ended 8 years prior. His employment record showed a career that had peaked around a regional director level in his mid-40s and declined from there, settling into middle management, with a salary that was comfortable but not exceptional and a status within the company that was secure, primarily because he had been there long enough to make himself difficult to remove without cause. I looked at that employment record for a long time. I thought about a Saturday morning. A gate, a door, opened partially. Someone like me. I called my attorney that evening. His name is James and he has managed my corporate affairs for 18 years and is accustomed to calls that begin with the phrase, I need you to look into something. For me, I told him I needed the current organizational chart for Meridian Systems and the composition of the shareholder registry in precise detail. He had it to me by morning. The next call I made was to the chairman of the Meridian Systems board, a man I had met once at a shareholder communication. -1 years prior and who knew my name primarily because 60% is a number that tends to be remembered. I told him I had become aware of a personnel matter I wished to address at the next shareholder meeting, and that I would be attending in person for the first time. He said he looked forward to it. He said this with the slight additional attention of someone who has just understood that something is about to change. I had not attended a shareholder meeting in 22 years. I bought my stake, held it, and let the business operate. The business had been operating, apparently, with Richard Hardcastle in it. That was about to change. The shareholder meeting and the silence before I spoke. I told Nadine what I was planning 3 weeks before the meeting. I sat across from her at my kitchen table and I told her the full story, which she had known in outline since she was a teenager but had never heard in the detail I gave her that evening. The door opened partially. The 3 words, the drive home. The decision I had made on that drive and had spent 38 years executing. She listened without interrupting. When I was done, she was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "You built all of this and never once used it to go after him." I told her I had not built it to go after him. I had built it because it needed to be built and because Nadine needed a life worth having and because someone like me turned out to be someone who could do exactly that. What happened after was a separate matter. She said, "Are you going to do it?" I said yes. She said, "I want to be there." Grandma always said, "Do not do the thing for the dramatic moment. Do it because the thing is right, and the moment is simply when right becomes visible." The shareholder meeting was held on a Thursday morning in a conference room on the 14th floor of the Meridian Systems headquarters building. The board was present, the executive team, and the shareholder representatives. Richard Hardcastle was not in the room. He was in the building 2 floors below, attending to whatever a middle manager attends to on a Thursday morning. The chairman opened the meeting and introduced the agenda. When he reached the item relating to a shareholder communication from the majority position holder, he nodded to me. I stood. I introduced myself by name, which produced a shift in the room among the board members who had perhaps heard the name but not associated it with a physical presence, and among the executive team who were clearly conducting rapid assessments of why the 60% holder had chosen this particular Thursday to attend for the first time in 22 years. I said, "I have a personnel matter to raise." I said it had come to my attention that an employee named Richard Hardcastle currently occupied a middle management position in the Data Systems Division. I said I had reason to believe his continued presence in the organization was inconsistent with the company's stated values regarding respect, integrity, and professional conduct. I said I was formally requesting his termination, effective immediately. The CEO, a careful man named Marcus who had run the company for 6 years, asked if I would like to share the basis for the request. I said yes, and then I told the room about a Saturday morning, 38 years ago. Not everything, not the 38 years, just the gate, the door, the 3 words. I told it into minutes. I told it the way I tell everything, precisely and completely, without unnecessary decoration. The room was very still when I finished. Then the CEO said he would need a moment to confer with the board. The confer lasted 9 minutes. When he came back, he said the request was approved and that the relevant HR process would be initiated immediately. He said it with the specific quality of a man who understands that 60% means the conference was largely a formality. The termination, the family, and the gate that swung both ways. Richard was called to HR at 11:47 that Thursday morning. Nadine was not in the meeting. She was at her desk 2 floors up, and she told me later that she had known the moment it happened, because she had watched the clock and calculated the timing. And there was a particular quality to the air at 11:47 that she recognized as the moment something she had been carrying for 38 years was finally, formally set down. He was given the standard severance package and escorted from the building by early afternoon. His manager, who was Nadine's colleague, was told that termination had been initiated by a shareholder directive and that the details were confidential. Richard left the building with a box of his personal items, and I would learn later from James a very clear understanding from the HR team of the basis for the decision, which had been shared with him in the exit meeting in terms that were accurate and unembellished. He knew exactly why and from whom and what 38 years had produced. Grandma always said, the truth delivered at the right moment does not need to be loud. It just needs to be complete. Let the other person sit with the completeness of it. That is the part that lasts. His mother called me for days later. She was 81 years old, and her voice had the particular quality of age that compresses things, makes them thinner and more urgent simultaneously. She said she had heard what had happened. She said she hoped I could understand that Richard's situation affected the whole family, and that they had come to depend on his income in ways that age and changed circumstances had made significant. She asked if I would reconsider. I listened to her fully. I let her finish. I did not interrupt. When she was done, I said, I remember a Saturday morning. I said I remembered standing in your driveway and telling you I was pregnant, and I remembered what you said to me, and I remembered walking back through your gate. I said I had spent 38 years on the other side of that gate. I said my daughter had spent 38 years on the other side of that gate, and now I was on this side of it, and I was making the same decision she had made, with one difference. I said, you told me your son would never touch someone like me. I am telling you that I have nothing against you personally. I simply have no obligation to you. You denied my daughter at your gate. I am declining at mine. I wish you well. I ended the call. I sat with the quiet of my office for a long moment. Then I called Nadine. I told her what the call had been and what I had said. She was quiet for a moment on her end. Then she said, Mama, that is enough. That is exactly enough. I think that was right. It was exactly enough. Not more, not less. Exactly the amount that the situation had always required and that had now, finally, been given. What 38 years builds and who it is actually for. I want to be careful about how I tell this last part, because I think the last part is the one most likely to be misunderstood. This story is not primarily about Richard. It is not even primarily about the shareholder meeting or the termination or the phone call with his mother. Satisfying as those moments were in the specific way that long-deferred clarity tends to be satisfying. This story is about Nadine. Nadine is 38 years old. She is brilliant in the particular way that people are brilliant when they have had both the capacity and the necessity. When the talent was always there and the circumstances required it to become something real rather than theoretical. She designed systems that thousands of people use without knowing her name, which is how the best infrastructure works. She owns a flat with a garden she tends on weekends. She has close friends and a relationship that makes her genuinely happy and a way of moving through the world that tells you, within about 4 minutes of meeting her, that she knows exactly who she is. I did not build what I built to get to that shareholder meeting. I built it so that Nadine could become that person. The shareholder meeting was simply what happened to be at the end of the road I built for her. Grandma always said, the best thing you ever build is not the thing with your name on it. It is the person who watched you build it and learned what building actually requires. She stayed at Meridian Systems. I want to mention that because I think it matters. She did not leave. after the meeting or distance herself from the situation. She went back to her desk the next morning and did her work, and she has continued to do it. And she is good at it, and the people she works with respect her for it. The meeting happened. She is still there. Those two things coexist without difficulty. Because she did not make the meeting about her career, she made it about something older and more fundamental than that. I am 68 years old. I have a business portfolio, a flat I have lived in for 20 years, and a daughter who calls me every Sunday and visits on alternating weeks and makes me laugh more consistently than anyone else in my life. I have friends I have kept for decades and work I still find interesting, and a garden that is better than it has ever been, because I have finally learned to be patient with things that take time to grow. I think sometimes about that Saturday morning. The gate, the driveway, the door opened partially and then closed. I think about walking back out through that gate at 29 years old with nothing resolved and everything uncertain, and a decision forming somewhere below the level of conscious thought that would take 38 years to fully express itself. I would not go back and change it. Not the gate, not the closed door, not even the 3 words. Because the 3 words produced the decision, and the decision produced everything, and everything produced Nadine. And Nadine is the point. She has always been the point. Grandma always said, the people who try to diminish you are doing you an accidental kindness. They are showing you exactly how high you are going. To have to climb to be beyond their reach. Climb, take your time, do it correctly. And when you arrive, look down not with contempt but with the quiet understanding that the view from here was always what you were climbing toward. Thank you for watching. If this story found you today, I hope it reminded you of something important. What people say you are is not what you are. What you build is what you are, and what you build is not. For them, it is for the person climbing beside you, or after you, or because of you. Build it carefully, build it well, and never, for a single moment, let a gate decide what you are worth. Leave a comment if this reached you. Share it with someone who needs to hear that the gate is not the end of the road. It is just where the real road begins.